you share some of the themes that have already come up. I can sort of repeat it here. I'm going to do a slightly different thing. So this is a project that is funded by the London Climate Change Partnership in West and Lloyd's of London, Supermarket. And this is about weather data, not only for climate change but for current operations. And that we conducted a survey, but we're also looking at some other issues. Survey closed in early March. I'm not going to go, I can give you some details about the survey. I'm going to just talk about some of the issues that I think are potentially relevant. So the key objectives of this are to look at what is currently collected in London, so who by, who's funding it, what data is actually used, and what would we actually like. And I'm not going to go through all of these details. Hopefully very soon there'll be a report available to you that you'll be able to get. I'll just give you some aspects of it. So, conducted a survey with about 220 respondents, and the type of respondents can be basically divided into from the UK, companies, governments, local authorities and groups. And we also explicitly wanted international input as well, so from government agencies, there should be universities also in the UK as well. So I've got a very large list of different groups, but we also got multiple people from lots of these organisations. For example, getting one response from the Met Office is not really appropriate. We have like several responses from our Environment Agency. In fact, probably most of the organisations we have multiple people responded because people use data for a whole variety of different reasons. One of the things, so what I'm really interested in is observations. So that's what's driving this particular report. One of the things that became really apparent is that people are not actually certain what the difference is between, for example, weather data. So what's the temperature going to be like tomorrow? And even in your report, Rory saw that some people apparently are using the TV weather, or potentially, or giving it, versus climate forecasting. So climate forecasting could be this, into the season or out, into the 2020s, 2030s. And then there's obviously a whole variety of applications that we need that also. For example, air quality, flood forecasting, building design, energy, building operations and things like that. And these are just examples. There's many other applications that data needs. So they need some form of information. And wondering that the applications are down below, that they would use it in a variety of different reasons. So I just actually want to go through looking at what are some examples of what's actually here in terms of what does that data actually look like, because that's one of the things that's really apparent, is that it's very different perspective on this. I don't know whether we need the lights. Would it be better with the lights off? So this is the UK CP09 projections, and this is London. And I've just taken one snapshot. I'm going to use several different scenarios, so it could be used with different time frames. But you can see that basically if you look at the scale, there's going to be no spatial variation in London. There's going to be either a 0 or about 1 to 2 degree difference across London, which for just about all applications is not actually sufficient. We look at the weather forecast. This is the weather forecast data from this morning, and so this is forecast data, it's not the actual data. You can see that you get some indication of it, and we look at the M25 going around, you can get some idea that you're getting a bit of information about potentially what the variability is going to be a wee bit warmer in the middle of the city and the surroundings. This is the actual observation, so now we're getting to something actually so this is from the Met Office. What you'll notice is that there are 3 sites inside the M25. Bizarrely, London City Airport is actually missing. I looked several times and it's not there. So this is the Met Office, so that in terms of it's just saying, this was what we would say was our best data. There's a whole bunch of other issues, but I just want to now show you what some other sources of data are. So this is the wind, so we have 3 sites. Now for a lot of applications, wind is important. This is weather underground, so this is volunteers that are feeding data, and again, here's the M25, and what you'll see is the fact London City Airport is actually showing up on this. So Weather Underground is now owned by the Weather Channel in the US, and so they're actually gathering up more data and putting it online than what the Met Office is. Met Office has just recently established a network of stations that is volunteers. So some of the volunteers that are providing their data to Weather Underground are now providing it to a Met Office station. So this is again the M25, and this is air temperature. So this is just automatically sucked in data. So this is current conditions, but this is the data that can be quality controlled and then be actually used to give more spatial information. So we have a look here. This is clearly, so at the moment it's 24 degrees in this location. So maybe it really is 24 degrees, but it's really close to, it's a very badly located sensor, but it is truly 24 degrees, or the sensor is actually appropriate. And so you can get some idea of what spatial variability is. This is another example of site taking observations. This is wind data. This is actually we just have a look at this wind. You can see generally sort of some consensus about what the wind direction is. This is the Weather Observatory, the WOW, so you can see, take this example here, that the wind is 90 degrees from each other. So, again, it may be absolutely correct observations. So life is simple if you just have one map and it says there's going to be a 1 degree difference. But for just about every application, if you think about the individual buildings that we saw being changed, it makes a difference what the orientation of that building, where it is in London. You don't want just to know that it's 1 degree. So this is another network of data. This is London Quick Balloon, which is basically there's one school in every borough that has stations, but there's basically no funding for keeping this set going in terms of quality control of the data. So this is temperature, this is wind speed. Again, you'll see some changes in directions. Thank you. That's meant to port for that purpose. This is the environment agencies. So is in me. The environment agency doesn't put the data on. So, but these squares give you where we have storage gauges, the red ones, and the brown ones are tipping bucket rain gauges, so you can start to see that there is actually a lot more information out there. There's obviously research going on. So for example, on the top of this building, this is red one here, where we have instruments. There's a number of other groups that are taking observations that provide a whole variety of input. This is just one example of a precipitation study that's being done in Imperial that is looking in relationship between radar and rain catches. Okay, so what we're trying to look at is there is a bunch of data out there. There's a lot more data out there than just the Met Office. But there are a whole series of issues about quality control, about location, about representativeness, about the metadata. Maybe that one that was 24 degrees and looks outrageous if you knew exactly what it was for. For someone's application, it may be the most useful piece of data that was there, and may not. Metadata is actually critical. All of those things impact how we can use the data. there's a whole wide range of potential improvements and applications. So now these are all things that individuals have identified. If we had more data, what could we actually do with things to do with flood forecasting, water management, much more better information about precipitation patterns. You know, if we think about the sacrifice of those kitchens, where are those kitchens actually located? They're not just one place in London. It's thinking about those individuals that we get the right response fast enough to say maybe they don't, maybe it's not an insurance issue if it's appropriately fast. Whole bunch of issues about numerical weather prediction. Most of the modelling, if we could improve that, would improve the climate predictions. UKC online predictions didn't have urban areas in them at all. The next range of predictions will actually take into account geometry. So there's one whole series of details about that, about transport, about equality forecasting, about ecosystem services and things, about green infrastructure, implications for pollen, emergency response. We have responses from people like the fire brigade and police in terms of improving data, health, building design, a lot of issues about design in terms of light and things like that, obviously for policy. So in one sense, some of the issues that are coming up are sort of similar to what Jen talked about. There is a problem about, if we look into, or several people mentioned, looking into the future, it's too difficult. A lot of the applications are ones that could be used now, so that if we sort of work commonly together, we can improve the future, but we can also make current operations resilient. And that's because behind the so behind the observations is a whole series of modelling, whether it's now casting or future forecasting for tomorrow or up 20 years, 50 years, and then a whole series of applications. That data that we have now, we can improve the modelling, improve those predictions. So I'm not going into all of the details about the survey. I'm happy to answer the question. It should be available publicly late June. We have a date. It is going to be. And if you talk to this person here, he will tell you a bit about launching, but the report will be